During Christmas Eve dinner, my daughter-in-law announced her parents would move into my house while I'd be sent to a nursing home. I nodded, let them plan, but by the time they arrived, I'd sold the house and vanished. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. I parked my truck in their driveway and sat there a moment, watching warm light spill from the windows. December 24th. Christmas Eve. I'd made pecan pie that morning, wrapped their gifts in paper I'd saved from last year. Small things, but I'd put thought into them. The walk to their front door felt longer than it should have. I rang the bell, heard movement inside, waited. When Clementine finally opened the door, her expression didn't change. No smile, no greeting. "Merry Christmas Eve," I said, holding up the pie and gift bags. "I brought your favorites. Set them anywhere." She turned away before I finished speaking. "We're about to eat." I stepped inside, arranged the gifts on the entry table beside a stack of unopened mail. Clementine had already disappeared into the dining room. The house smelled like roasted chicken, but something felt off. Cold. "Thank you for having me," I called after her. No response. Milton appeared from the kitchen carrying a serving bowl, barely glanced my way. "Hey, Dad." "Son." I waited for more, but he brushed past me. I followed them to the dining room. 3 place settings on the table. 3. I stood there staring at the empty space where a 4th should have been, until Clementine noticed. "Oh." She pulled a chair from against the wall, no apology in her voice. "Sit there." I positioned my own chair, served myself from bowls no one passed to me. The chicken was dry. I chewed slowly, tried to find conversation in the silence. "The Morrison family commissioned a beautiful oak cabinet this week," I said. Depression-era piece. The craftsmanship was incredible. Dovetail joints, original brass hardware. Clementine's thumb moved across her phone screen. I turned to Milton. "How's work going, son?" "Fine." He kept his eyes on his plate. 10 seconds of silence. 15. Just the sound of silverware against porcelain. I cut another piece of chicken, forced it down. Clementine's fork clattered against her plate. "We've made a family decision." I looked up. She was staring at me now, phone face down on the table. Milton had stopped eating. "My parents need a place to live," she continued. "I see." I set down my fork carefully. "And?" "They're moving into your house, day after tomorrow." She slid a glossy brochure across the table toward me. "Mountain View Senior Living," it read. Smiling elderly people on the cover. "You'll go here. It's a good facility." The words didn't land at first. I looked at Milton, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He stared at his water glass. "It's already decided, Dad." His voice was barely audible. "You're getting older," Clementine added. "You shouldn't live alone. This arrangement works better for everyone." Everyone. I studied her face. She meant it, every word. She actually believed she was being reasonable. I picked up the brochure, examined the photos of residents playing cards, gardening and raised beds. Looked like a nice place, honestly. Expensive, too. I wondered who she thought would pay for it. "What time should I expect them?" I asked. Clementine blinked. "You're agreeing?" "I won't object." I folded the brochure, tucked it in my shirt pocket. "When do your parents arrive?" She exchanged a glance with Milton. Suspicion flickered across her features, but triumph won out. 10 in the morning. Have your things ready." "As you wish." I stood, buttoned my coat slowly, found my keys on the entry table where I'd set them. "We'll need to discuss arrangements tomorrow," Clementine called after me. I didn't respond, just closed their door quietly and walked to my truck, started the engine, pulled out of the driveway. Made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over because my hands were shaking too hard to steer properly. I sat there in the dark, breathing. Christmas lights blinked on houses up and down the street. Families inside, I imagined. Real families. The kind that didn't treat you like a problem to be solved. After a while, the shaking stopped. I drove home. My house, my 2-story wooden house that I'd bought 30 years ago, that I'd painted and repaired and loved, sat dark and empty. I unlocked the front door, stood in the threshold, reached for the light switch, then stopped. Stood there in the darkness instead, letting my eyes adjust. This was mine, my name on the deed, my equity, my decision who lived here. They'd forgotten that crucial detail. I moved through the rooms, turning on lights one by one. touched the banister I'd refinished last spring, the built-in bookshelves I'd installed in the study, the kitchen cabinets I'd rebuilt after the water damage in 2010. Every corner of this house had my work in it, my time, my care. In my study, I opened the filing cabinet and pulled out the deed, spread it across my desk alongside tax documents, mortgage statements from years ago, paid in full in 2018, insurance papers, everything in my name, Roscoe L. Gibson. Sole owner? I sat there a long time, papers arranged before me like pieces of a puzzle. My laptop was still open from that morning. I woke it up, started typing. Quick property sale, Oregon. International flights, Portland. Cost of living, Southeast Asia. The search results multiplied. I clicked through pages, read testimonials from American retirees living in Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines. Took notes on a yellow legal pad. My handwriting looked strange, steady, controlled. Outside, a car passed. Its headlights swept across my walls, then darkness again. I pulled up my bank accounts, calculated numbers. The house was worth maybe $600,000, probably more. My savings, the equipment in my workshop, my truck, everything liquidated, I'd be looking at $750,000, maybe more than enough to disappear. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, pictured Clementine's face when she arrived here on the 26th with her parents, found the house empty, pictured Milton finally having to look at what he'd allowed to happen. The hurt was still there, sharp in my chest, but underneath it, something else had crystallized, something cold and clear and patient. I opened my eyes, looked at the papers spread before me, picked up my pen and started making a list. Christmas morning, I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table with my legal pad. The house felt different now, not like home exactly, more like a piece of property I was getting ready to sell. I'd barely slept, but my mind was clear, sharp. I reviewed the notes I'd made the night before, added details, crossed out impossible ideas. By noon, I had a rough timeline. By 3 o'clock, I had a plan. The next day, the 26th, the day Clementine's parents were supposed to arrive, I drove to my workshop in the industrial district, unlocked the metal door, flipped on the overhead lights. Sawdust hung in the air, caught in the winter sunlight, streaming through the high windows. I'd built this business from nothing. Furniture restoration, custom carpentry. The big table saw, the lathe, the belt sander, all paid for, all mine. I walked between the workbenches, ran my hand across an unfinished dresser I'd been restoring for a client. Art Deco piece, beautiful lines. I'd have to finish it quickly, deliver it, collect payment. Everything would have to go. The tools, the equipment, the lease on this space. I pulled out my phone, started photographing everything, made mental notes about who might buy what. Back home, I spread my documents across the dining room table. Deed, tax records, bank statements, business licenses. Organized them by category. Tomorrow, I'd need legal advice. On the 27th, I called a lawyer's office downtown. The receptionist said they were busy with year-end closings, but when I mentioned I needed to sell property quickly, she put me through to Frank Harrison. How quickly are we talking? Harrison's voice was gravelly, professional. 2 weeks, 3 at most. Silence on the line. Then, that's ambitious. What's the situation? Personal matter, family issue. I kept my voice neutral. I own the property outright. No mortgage, no liens. I need to liquidate and relocate internationally. International? He sounded intrigued now. Can you come in this afternoon, 2 o'clock? His office was on the 14th floor of a building downtown, glass and steel, with a view of the Willamette River. Harrison was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with wire-rimmed glasses and a firm handshake. I laid out my documents. He examined them, asked questions. How long had I owned the property? Any disputes with neighbors? Outstanding debts? I answered everything clearly, concisely. Your son, Harrison said, looking up from the deed. He's not on the title? No. Has he ever lived in the property, claimed residency? He moved out 15 years ago, rents his own place across town. Harrison nodded slowly. And he's aware you're selling? He will be. Something flickered in Harrison's expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of a familiar story. He didn't push it, just returned to the documents. With the market right now, you could get 620, maybe 640 if we find the right buyer, he said. Cash sales move faster. We can list it as is, price it aggressively. 2 weeks is tight, but possible if someone's motivated. They will be. I folded my hands on his desk. Price it at $595, cash only. Quick close. He raised an eyebrow. That's leaving money on the table. Speed matters more. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. I can give you names of agents who specialize in fast sales. And you'll want to talk to an accountant about the tax implications. International relocation has reporting requirements. We talked for another 40 minutes. By the time I left, I had business cards for a real estate agent, a tax specialist, and Harrison's own card with his cell number written on the back. Call me if complications arise, he'd said. Family situations can get messy. I drove home with the winter sun setting orange behind the West Hills. In my driveway, I sat in the truck for a minute before going inside. This was really happening. No turning back now. That evening, I laid out the full timeline on fresh legal pad pages. December 28th through January 17th. 3 weeks. List the house, accept an offer, close the sale, liquidate everything else, book flights. The steps looked impossible all written out like that. Too much to accomplish in too little time, but possible, just barely possible. I made dinner, leftover chicken soup, and ate it standing at the counter. My phone sat beside me on the granite. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. Milton answered on the third ring. Dad? Background noise, television maybe. Clementine's voice saying something I couldn't make out. I need more time, I said. What? To pack, to arrange things. Your mother-in-law's parents, Chester and Cornelia, they can't move in on the 26th. I need until mid-January. Dad, we already told them. I know what you told them. I kept my voice tired, defeated. But I'm 62 years old, Milton. I've lived in this house for 3 decades. I can't pack everything in 2 days. I need 3 weeks. That's all I'm asking. Silence. Then Clementine's voice, clearer now. Let me talk to him. No, Milton said, away from the phone. Then back to me. Why 3 weeks? I have clients to finish work for. Business matters to close out. I'm trying to cooperate, son. I'm not fighting this. I just need reasonable time. More muffled conversation on his end. I waited, letting the silence work for me. January 17th, Milton said finally. Not a day later, and don't try anything. I won't. I let relief color my voice, gratitude I didn't feel. Thank you, son. I appreciate your understanding. Yeah. He sounded uncertain now, like he knew something was off, but couldn't identify what. We'll check on you. Make sure you're actually packing. Of course. You're welcome anytime. I hung up before he could say anything else. 3 weeks. I'd bought myself 3 weeks. I set the phone down and allowed myself a small, cold smile. Then I reached for it again and dialed the real estate agent Harrison had recommended. Time to start moving. I didn't wait. That same evening after hanging up with Milton, I called the real estate agent Harrison had recommended. Sarah Chen answered on the second ring, sounded young but sharp. I need to list my house tomorrow, I told her. She could meet in the morning. December 29th arrived cold and bright. Sarah pulled up at 9:30 in a silver sedan, tablet and camera in hand. I met her at the door, shook her hand once. She was maybe 40, efficient movements, quick eyes that evaluated everything. We walked through the house room by room. She opened closets, tested faucets, measured windows with a laser device, made notes on her tablet. Beautiful hardwood, she said in the living room. Original? I refinished it myself, 15 years ago. That adds value. She photographed the floor from 3 angles. We could get $650, maybe more with staging and time. I need speed, not maximum price. 3 weeks, cash buyer if possible. She looked up from her tablet. That's aggressive. We'd need to price competitively. $620. List it today. That'll attract attention fast. She studied my face. Can I ask why the urgency? Personal reasons. Will it sell quickly at that price? Very likely. I'll have it live by tonight. She spent 2 hours photographing every room, every angle. I watched from the study window as she shot the front porch, the railing I'd built with my own hands. That evening, an email arrived with the listing draft. I reviewed it on my laptop, clicked approve. The The property went live at 7:30 p.m. By morning, requests for showings had started coming in. The next few days blurred together. I spent December 30th at a different bank across town, opening new accounts, personal and business, completely separate from anything Milton had access to. The representative processed the applications while I filled out forms in the careful block letters. That afternoon, I initiated a wire transfer from my old joint account. $180,000 moved electronically to the new account. I printed the confirmation page, filed it in a leather portfolio I'd bought specifically for this purpose. New Year's Eve, I worked alone in my workshop. Let midnight pass without acknowledgement. January 2nd, I started calling credit card companies. Had a list of 4 cards where Milton was an authorized user. Sat at my kitchen table with the list, my reading glasses, a pen to check off each completed call. I need to remove an authorized user from my account, I told the first representative. I can help with that. Account number? I read it off the card, answered her security questions. When she asked for the name to remove, I said it clearly. Milton Gibson, my son. Brief pause on her end. I'll remove him immediately. He won't have access after this call. Can I ask the reason? Financial independence, his and mine. Understood. He's removed. I thanked her, hung up, crossed that card off my list. Dialed the next number. Same conversation, slight variations. By evening, Milton was removed from everything. I calculated what he'd charged in recent months. $12,000, almost exactly what I'd given him last year as a Christmas gift. The house showings started January 2nd. I left before the potential buyers arrived, drove to my workshop, worked on restoring an antique chair while Sarah handled them. She sent text updates throughout. Family of 4, loved the kitchen. Young couple, concerns about the roof. Investor, cash buyer, wants quick close. January 4th morning. I was sanding the chair's spindles when my phone rang. The Morrisons want to make an offer, Sarah said. Her voice carried excitement. They're relocating from California, have cash from selling their Bay Area home. How much? They're writing it up now. But Roscoe, they're serious, want to close fast. That afternoon, she brought the Morrison family to meet me. Young couple, 2 small children who ran through my living room pointing at things. The husband shook my hand firmly. This house has such character, the wife said. Did you do the restoration work? Most of it, the built-ins, the deck, the trim work. It's impressive, the husband added. We're looking for something with history. California houses all feel the same. This house has history. The wife hesitated. Why are you selling, if you don't mind my asking? I looked at her for a moment. Time for a change, new chapter. We'd love to make an offer. The timeline works perfectly for us. Your agent will coordinate with mine. I hope you'll be happy here. The lie tasted neutral. They would be happy. I would be happier. Their offer arrived the next morning via email. $620,000 cash. Close by January 16th. I called Sarah immediately. Accept it, I said. Don't you want to accept it? January 8th, I sat in a conference room at the title company downtown. Stacks of documents covered the table. Elmer Harrison sat across from me, reading through contracts with a yellow highlighter. The title officer explained each form: purchase agreement, seller disclosures, closing statement. I read every page before signing. Harrison interrupted once. Roscoe, you're sure about this timing? I looked up. Pen paused above a signature line. The timing is perfect. He nodded slowly. Your son has no claim to this property? None, I've verified. And you've considered what happens when he finds out? I've considered everything, Elmer. This is justice, not impulse. Fair enough. He pushed the contract toward me. Sign here. I signed. No hesitation. Closing date. January 15th. Possession transfers to the Morrison family, January 17th at 9 a.m. The same day Chester and Cornelia were planning to arrive. Throughout all of this, my phone buzzed periodically with messages from Clementine. January 3rd, during the bank transfer. Did you submit the paperwork for Mountain View Senior Living? They need it this week. I typed one-handed, being handled, no concerns. January 8th, during lunch at the workshop, Milton called. Hey, Dad, just checking the house will be ready for Chester and Cornelia on the 17th. They're packing now. I swallowed a bite of sandwich, completely calm. Everything is in order, son. The house will be ready. Good. Don't disappoint us. He hung up. I finished my sandwich, returned to the furniture I was restoring. January 10th evening. I was home reviewing closing documents when another text from Clementine arrived. Attached was a floor plan photo of my house. Which bedroom is biggest? Parents want the master but wanted to check. I typed slowly, deliberately. Master bedroom has best views, very spacious, perfect for them. Her response came immediately. Great, they'll love it. Should we paint before they move in? House will be ready as is, everything in place. Perfect. See you on the 17th for move-in day. I typed the final response. I'll make sure everything is ready. Sent the message, set down my phone. The irony was exquisite. They were planning paint colors for a house that wouldn't be mine to give. 5 days until closing. 7 days until they discovered the truth. January 11th, I woke early and started packing. 1 large suitcase, 1 carry-on. Clothes I'd need for extended travel. Documents in a waterproof folder. Passport, bank information, attorney contact details, copies of the house sale contract. Everything else could stay. I worked through my house systematically, deciding what mattered. Most of it didn't. The furniture would stay, part of the sale agreement. Personal items, photographs, my father's pocket watch, those went into the suitcase. Everything else was just weight. At my workshop, I met with Robert Hayes, my lead carpenter for the past 12 years. Showed him the books, explained the client roster, handed him keys and account access. You're really leaving? He looked uncertain, but not surprised. Travel plans, indefinite timeline. What should I tell people? Tell them I retired. You're managing operations now. Keep 30% of net profits. Send the rest to this account. I handed him a paper with the new bank details. Monthly transfers. Robert studied the paper. This is generous. You've earned it. Keep the business running. We shook hands. He still looked confused, but he'd figure it out eventually. January 12th through 14th passed in careful preparation. I closed out client accounts, returned borrowed tools, settled outstanding invoices, transferred the workshop lease to Robert's name, organized financial documents into labeled folders, taxes, insurance, property records, everything someone might need to understand what I'd done. January 15th arrived, closing day. The title company office felt different this time. Final. The Morrison family sat across the table with their 2 children coloring in the corner. We signed the remaining documents, initialed pages, transferred keys. The title officer counted out the check, $591,000 after fees and commissions. I deposited it immediately via mobile app. Watched the balance update in my new account. $771,000 total. Enough to disappear comfortably. The Morrison family's daughter handed me a crayon drawing, stick figures in front of a house. That's you, she said, pointing to a tall stick figure. Thank you for our new home. I folded the drawing carefully, put it in my jacket pocket. Take good care of it. That evening, I returned to Harrison's office one final time. He was packing up for the day, loosening his tie. It's done then, he said. Almost. I pulled out a thumb drive. I need you to send an email tomorrow morning, January 17th, exactly 8 a.m. He took the drive, suspicious. What kind of email? To my son and daughter-in-law, explaining the situation. Harrison plugged the drive into his computer, opened the file. Read it silently. His eyebrows rose slightly. This is severe, Roscoe. It's accurate. You'll be gone when they receive this? In Portugal. I fly out tomorrow morning. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. You've thought this through? For weeks. You know they'll be furious. They might try legal action. Let them try. Everything I've done is legal. You verified it yourself. Harrison saved the file, set up a scheduled send. 8 a.m., January 17th. It'll go out automatically. He removed the thumb drive, handed it back. You're a cold one when you want to be. When I need to be. I left his office as the sun set orange behind the buildings. Drove home through evening traffic, past restaurants full of people having normal lives. My house, for one more night, my house, sat dark when I arrived. I walked through it one last time, touching walls, door frames, the kitchen counter where I'd eaten breakfast 10,000 mornings. None of it felt like mine anymore. It was already the Morrison family's house. They'd be happy here. In my study, I booked my flight on the laptop. TAP Air Portugal, Portland to Lisbon, January 16th, departing 10:15 a.m. One-way ticket. Printed the boarding pass, folded it into my passport. My phone buzzed. Text from Clementine. Just confirming. Parents arrive at your place at 10 a.m. on the 17th. You'll be there to let them in? I stared at the message for a long moment. Typed, everything will be exactly as it should be. Sent it. Set the phone down. Tomorrow morning, I would leave Portland. Tomorrow evening, Portugal time, while I was settling into a Lisbon hotel, Harrison's scheduled email would send. By the time Milton and Clementine read it, I'd be 7,000 miles away. The email was simple, direct. 3 paragraphs explaining that I'd sold the house to the Morrison family, that possession transferred at 9 a.m. on January 17th, that Chester and Cornelia arriving at 10 a.m. would find new owners who knew nothing about any arrangement, that I'd removed Milton from all my financial accounts and credit cards, that I was leaving the country indefinitely. The final line, you tried to take my home. Instead, you taught me that family is a choice, and I choose differently now. I packed the laptop, did a final sweep of the house. Everything important fit in 2 bags, 40 years compressed into 120 pounds of luggage. I slept well that night. No dreams, no regrets. When I woke at 5 a.m. on January 16th, gray light filtering through the windows, I felt no sadness, only clarity. I showered, dressed, made coffee one last time in this kitchen, carried my bags to the truck, loaded them in the bed, stood in the driveway looking at the house. The Morrison family's daughter's crayon drawing was still in my jacket pocket. They'd be good here, better than Milton and Clementine would have been. I climbed into my truck, started the engine, backed out of the driveway. Didn't look at the house in the rearview mirror. Portland International Airport was nearly empty at 6:30 a.m. I checked my bags, received my boarding pass, went through security, found a coffee shop near my gate, ordered black coffee and a muffin I didn't eat. At 9:45, the gate agent announced boarding. I stood, gathered my carry-on, joined the line, handed my passport and boarding pass to the agent. She scanned them, smiled. Have a safe flight to Lisbon, Mr. Gibson. Thank you. I walked down the jetway, found my seat, 17A, window, settled in. The plane filled slowly. A businessman took the middle seat, nodded politely, opened his laptop. I looked out the window at the gray Portland morning. At exactly 10:15, the plane pushed back from the gate. We taxied to the runway, engines building to a roar. The plane accelerated, nose lifting, ground falling away beneath us. Portland disappeared below the clouds. 17 hours from now, Chester and Cornelia would arrive at what they thought was their new home. They'd find the Morrison family unpacking boxes, confused and defensive. Clementine would check her email, read Harrison's message, call Milton in a panic. But I'd be gone. Unreachable, free. I closed my eyes as the plane leveled off, felt the engines settle into their steady thrum. Somewhere far below, my old life was ending. Ahead, 7,000 miles away, something new was beginning. The businessman beside me typed on his laptop. The flight attendant offered drinks. I asked for water, sipped it slowly, watched clouds pass outside the window. 12 hours to Lisbon, then a taxi to a hotel I'd booked online, then rest. Then decisions about what came next. But first, I needed to be gone when the bomb detonated. The alarm woke me at 5:30 on January 16th. I rose in darkness, showered in the empty bathroom, dressed in comfortable travel clothes. The house echoed. Most of the furniture was gone, donated or sold in the previous week. What remained would be picked up by charity services after I left. I made coffee in the kitchen with the single mug and pot I'd kept. Everything else had been cleared out. Drank it standing at the counter, looking out the window at the dark street. Rinsed the mug, left it upside down to dry. Walked through each room one final time. Living room, bare walls where family photos had hung. Bedroom, just a mattress on the floor. Study, empty shelves. Every step echoed. In the kitchen, I took a pen from my jacket pocket and wrote a note on a piece of paper. Welcome home. Furnace filter changed December. Oak tree needs spring trimming. Previous owner. Placed it on the counter beside the house keys. Picked up my 2 suitcases from beside the front door. Stepped outside into the cold morning. Loaded them into my truck bed. Started the engine. Pulled out of the driveway. Didn't look at the house in my rearview mirror. Portland International Airport was quiet at 7:45. I parked in the long-term lot, noted the space number to text Robert later. Inside the terminal, I checked my bags at the TAP Air Portugal counter, received a fresh boarding pass, Passed through security, found my gate, bought coffee, sat watching other travelers, families with children, business people in suits, couples holding hands, normal lives. At 9:40, boarding began. I lined up with Group 3, showed my documents, walked down the jetway, found seat 24C, aisle, stowed my carry-on overhead, sat, fastened the seatbelt. The plane pushed back at exactly 10:15. We taxied to the runway, engines building to their roar, acceleration, nose lifting, ground falling away. Portland shrank beneath us. Somewhere down there, Milton and Clementine were starting their day, planning for tomorrow, completely unaware. I ordered coffee when the flight attendant came by, declined the meal, pulled out a book on woodworking history, something neutral to occupy my mind. The flight would take 10 hours direct to Lisbon. My phone stayed off. Airline rules, yes, but also preference. I was unreachable now, suspended between worlds. I didn't sleep much, just read and watched clouds pass outside the window. Somewhere over the Atlantic, morning became afternoon, became evening. Time zones worked in my favor. While I flew eastward, Portland moved through its own timeline into the next day. At exactly 8 a.m. Portland time, while I was 5,000 miles away over the ocean, Harrison's scheduled email sent. I wouldn't know this until later, but I could imagine it. Milton at his kitchen table, coffee in hand, checking his phone before work. Email notification. Harrison and Associates Legal. Opening it, reading. Effective immediately. All financial support is terminated. Confusion at first, then alarm, calling my number, getting voicemail, calling again and again, 5 times in 10 minutes. Then calling Clementine, voice tight. Something's wrong, Dad sent a weird email. Her dismissive response, deal with it later, my parents will be at the house in 2 hours. Him trying my number again. Nothing. 2 hours later, at 10 a.m. Portland time, Chester and Cornelia Ellis arrived at what they thought was their new home. 3 moving trucks full of their belongings. Clementine with them, directing traffic. They pulled into the driveway, saw unfamiliar cars, approached the front door. Mr. Morrison opened it before they could knock. Confused expression. Can I help you? Chester. We're moving in. This is our new house. Morrison more confused. This is our house. We just bought it. Clementine pushing forward. There's been a mistake. This is my father-in-law's house. Morrison calling his wife, showing them the deed. Morrison names. January 15th closing date. The color draining from Clementine's face. Her calling. Milton. Get here now. The house is sold. Chaos erupting. Chester arguing with the Morrisons. Cornelia sitting in the truck cab, stunned. Moving truck drivers waiting, uncertain. Clementine calling my number, phone off, calling again, and again, and again. 15 calls in the first hour. 23 from Milton by end of day. 18 from Clementine. 6 from unknown numbers, probably Chester and Cornelia, but I knew none of this yet. I was over the Atlantic, reading about 19th century furniture joinery, drinking bad airline coffee, completely unreachable. The plane landed in Lisbon at 7 p.m. local time, 11 a.m. Portland time, 1 hour after the discovery. We taxied to the gate. Passengers stood, collected bags. I retrieved my carry-on, filed off with everyone else, followed signs in Portuguese and English to baggage claim, waited at the carousel until my suitcases appeared, loaded them onto a cart, passed through customs. The agent barely glanced at my passport. In the arrivals hall, I found a mobile service kiosk. English? I asked. The vendor nodded. Yes, what do you need? Local SIM card. He set me up with a Portuguese number and data plan. I paid cash, pocketed the new SIM, then I made a decision. Turned on my American phone to check if everything had executed properly, powered it on, waited for it to connect to the network. The vibration started immediately. Notifications flooding in like an avalanche. 47 missed calls, 12 voicemails, 25 text messages. I opened the call log, scrolled through the list. Milton, Milton, Milton. Clementine, Clementine. Unknown numbers scattered throughout. Opened a text from Clementine. What did you do? Call me now. Another, Dad, you need to fix this. Another, the house is sold. I stood there in the airport, reading the panic in all capitals, and allowed myself a small, cold smile. Opened my phone settings, went to my contacts. Milton Gibson, block this caller, confirm. Clementine Gibson, block this caller, confirm. Each unknown number, block, block, block. Opened the voicemail. Selected all messages, delete without listening. Selected all text threads, delete. The phone went quiet in my hand, clean, silent. I picked up my luggage cart, walked toward the exit doors. Warm Lisbon evening air hit my face as the automatic doors slid open. Complete freedom. The Airbnb I'd booked was in Alfama, Lisbon's oldest district. Narrow cobblestone streets twisted between buildings painted yellow and pink, laundry hanging between windows like flags. The taxi driver dropped me at the bottom of a steep hill. Cars couldn't navigate up here. I hauled my suitcases up uneven stone steps worn smooth by centuries of feet, found the key in the lockbox outside a blue door, let myself into a small studio with a balcony overlooking the Tagus River. I slept well that first night, better than I had in months. Woke to church bells and seagulls, sunlight streaming through shutters I'd forgotten to close. The next morning, January 18th, Lisbon time, I walked down to a neighborhood cafe, ordered coffee in broken English and hand gestures. The woman behind the counter smiled, patient with my attempts. I sat at an outdoor table watching the city wake up, people heading to work, tourists already taking photos, yellow trams climbing the hills with their cheerful bells. My phone stayed in my pocket, the American one completely silenced, blocked numbers unable to penetrate. The Portuguese SIM gave me a fresh number nobody had. I didn't know the specifics of what was happening in Portland, but I could imagine the chaos. Picture Milton and Clementine's faces. Chester and Cornelia standing on the porch, confused and furious. The Morrison family trying to explain they'd bought the house legally. What I learned later, piecing it together from a few unblocked emails that came weeks afterward. Milton and Clementine spent January 17th through 20th in absolute panic. They showed up at Harrison's office demanding he reverse the sale. Harrison, professional and unmoved, explained that everything was legal. The house had been mine alone to sell. No spouse, no co-owner, no one with any claim. They threatened to sue. Harrison informed them they'd lose and incur legal fees they couldn't afford. He was polite about it, but firm. They tried to reach me through every possible avenue. Called my workshop. Robert told them I'd retired, and he had no forwarding information, just monthly payments arriving in his account. Called the bank, protected by privacy laws, would release nothing. Called the title company, referred them back to Harrison. Even tried the police, who explained that no crime had been committed. All dead ends. Every door closed. On January 21st, they finally accepted reality. The house was gone. I was gone. No legal recourse existed. Then the financial revelations started cascading like dominoes. January 23rd. Milton checked their rent account, trying to understand why the automatic payment had failed. Discovered it came from a separate account, one I'd been funding for 3 years. He genuinely believed their rent came from his own income, never questioned where the money originated. The account was now empty, closed permanently. Their landlord called the next day. Rent payment for February had failed. They owed $2,000 immediately or faced eviction proceedings. January 26th, credit card bills arrived. All the cards Milton had been using, authorized user on my accounts, were canceled. He owed $12,000 in recent charges with no way to pay. Late fees started accruing. Collection agencies would follow. Chester and Cornelia, meanwhile, were living in Chester's cramped one-bedroom apartment across town. All their furniture sat in storage trucks they couldn't afford to keep or unload. They'd given up their previous housing, thinking they had my house. Now they had nothing but a month-to-month lease they'd had to beg for. Clementine called an attorney January 28th. Consultation cost $300 they barely had. The attorney reviewed everything: house deed, sale contract, bank statements, and delivered the verdict: no case. Roscoe Gibson owned the property outright, had every legal right to sell it, owed them nothing, not morally obligated, not legally obligated, nothing. The consultation fee was non-refundable. February 1st, the eviction notice came. 30 days to vacate their 3-bedroom house. February 2nd, Milton and Clementine signed a lease for a studio apartment in a worse neighborhood. 800 square feet, 1 room, kitchenette, shared laundry. Barely affordable even with 2 incomes. They'd been living in a 3-bedroom house, spacious and comfortable, never realizing I'd been covering 70% of their housing costs. They moved in February 5th with almost nothing. Most of their furniture had been in my house, included in the Morrison family sale. They bought an air mattress from a discount store, used furniture from thrift shops. Clementine cried during the move. Milton stayed silent. Chester and Cornelia found a cheap rental too, smaller than they'd had before, farther from family. Cornelia cried every night. Chester stopped speaking to his daughter entirely. Their relationship with Clementine shattered under the weight of broken promises. Meanwhile, I was walking along the Tagus River at sunset, eating pasté de nata from local bakeries, sleeping peacefully in my Alfama studio. I didn't gloat, didn't feel particularly victorious, just felt level, balanced. They'd tried to take everything from me. I'd taken everything from them instead. Simple arithmetic. Mid-February, I moved from the Airbnb to a small apartment I rented monthly in Grassa, another Lisbon neighborhood. Top floor, incredible light, €500 a month. Back in Portland, that was exactly what I'd been covering for Milton's rent differential. I enrolled in Portuguese language classes at a community center. Started meeting other expats at cafes, Americans, Canadians, Brits, all of us escaping something. Discovered Lisbon's woodworking community, visited workshops in industrial areas, talked craft with master carpenters who worked in traditions 3 centuries old. My money, invested conservatively in index funds and bonds, generated modest returns. I could live in Portugal indefinitely on what I'd accumulated, not lavishly but comfortably. Better than comfortably, actually. Well, every few days, my blocked numbers would try again. The phone would show blocked caller with no notification sound, no vibration. I'd watch it happen and delete the record. They were persistent. I'd give them that. Once, early March, I unblocked Milton's number just to see what had accumulated. 17 new voicemails waited. I listened to the first 30 seconds of one. "Dad, please, we need to talk. I know you're angry, but we can fix this. We can work something out. Just call me back, please." Deleted it. Blocked him again. There was nothing to fix, nothing to work out. The transaction was complete. They'd had every chance to treat me like family, like a human being worth basic respect. They'd chosen otherwise, chosen to see me as an obstacle, a resource, a problem to be managed. This was the consequence. Fair trade. I sat on my Grassa apartment balcony one evening in late March, watching the sunset paint the city orange and purple. 7,000 miles from Portland, sipping Portuguese wine that cost €3 and tasted better than anything I'd had in years. My phone, on the table beside me, stayed blessedly silent. They wanted me in a home for the elderly, powerless, and compliant. Instead, I'd made my own home, on my own terms, out of their reach entirely. The revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was surgical, complete, permanent. And every morning I woke up in Lisbon, I chose it again. February 6th, the day after Milton and Clementine moved into their studio apartment, Clementine sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. The table served as dining surface, desk, and the only workspace in their 800 square feet. She typed searches: sue parent for business, inheritance before death, family business rights. Took notes on a legal pad, found attorney listings filtered by descriptions containing words like aggressive and family business disputes. Called 3 offices. Mitchell Sanders returned her call that evening. "Come in tomorrow," he said. February 10th, she dressed in old business clothes and took the bus downtown. Couldn't afford parking. Sanders' office was smaller than Palmer's, but Sanders himself seemed hungrier. Younger, maybe mid-40s, eager eyes. She explained the situation, heavily edited to make Roscoe sound like a villain who'd stolen what rightfully belonged to Milton. "I think we can make a case," Sanders said. He typed while she talked, pulled up legal precedents. "Oregon doesn't typically recognize living inheritance claims, but we can argue implied partnership. Your husband assumed he'd inherit the business. Everyone assumed it. That's something." Sanders printed a draft complaint. "This'll cost $1,000 retainer." She put it on a credit card they couldn't pay off. But it felt like action, like fighting back. The lawsuit, Petition for Recognition of Living Heirs Share in Gibson Restoration, LLC, was filed February 15th. Clementine felt triumphant. Milton felt uneasy, but went along with it. February 18th, a process server delivered the summons to Gibson Restoration. Robert signed for it, opened the envelope, read the first page, immediately photographed every page with his phone, emailed Roscoe. Urgent, lawsuit filed, see attached. In Lisbon, 8 hours ahead, evening, I was sitting on my Grassa balcony drinking wine. Phone pinged, downloaded the PDF, read through it carefully, typed my response. Forward everything to Elmer Harrison. This is frivolous. Wasn't stressed, wasn't even particularly surprised. Sent a second email directly to Harrison with the subject line, New nuisance from Milton. Harrison called the next morning via WhatsApp. I've seen worse cases. This won't go anywhere. How weak is it? About as weak as cases get. You're sole owner on all formation documents. Milton never invested, never worked there, never had any ownership interest. I'll file a motion to dismiss. Do I need to return? Not at all. I'll handle everything. This is desperation, not strategy. Let me know when it's done. Will do. How's Lisbon? Peaceful. Harrison filed his comprehensive response February 25th. Articles of organization showing me as sole member. Tax returns showing no other owners. My affidavit stating Milton had never participated in the business in any capacity. The court scheduled a hearing for March 20th. I wouldn't need to be there. Meanwhile, Chester tried his own approach. February 20th, he called Harrison's office, left a voicemail. Tell Roscoe Gibson that if he doesn't make this right, I'll tell everyone what kind of father he is. I'll go to his customers, ruin his reputation. Harrison forwarded the recording to me. I listened once, emailed back, ignore it, he has nothing. Chester followed through. February 22nd, he showed up at my workshop. Walked in while customers were browsing furniture. Loud voice, you're buying from a man who abandoned his family. Robert approached quickly. Sir, you need to leave. I'm warning these people. They should know. You're trespassing. This is private property. Chester kept shouting. One customer looked uncomfortable, started toward the door. Robert pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police right now. Chester retreated, but kept yelling until he was outside. Robert followed him to his car, watched him drive away. Later, Robert emailed me. Chester Ellis showed up, removed him. Should I file restraining order? I replied, not necessary, he's harmless, just desperate. Chester wrote negative online reviews. Owner abandoned his family, terrible person. Review platforms removed them as non-customer complaints. His campaign fizzled. Nobody cared about family drama. March 1st, financial reality forced real changes. Clementine swallowed her pride and applied to retail positions. Got hired at Target, $16 per hour, 40 hours weekly. Her first real job in years. Milton was already working delivery, picked up a second courier job with DoorDash. 12-hour days, 6 days a week. March 10th, Clementine's first paycheck arrived, $512 after taxes for 1 week of work. She stared at it, doing math. They needed 4 of these just for rent. Milton brought in roughly $600 a week, combined from both jobs. Together, barely scraping by, they ate cheap food, skipped all entertainment, argued about every expense. March 15th, evening. Clementine came home from an 8-hour retail shift, feet aching, exhausted from dealing with rude customers. Found Milton on the couch playing video games. She froze in the doorway, dropped her purse. What are you doing? Milton glanced over. Playing, it's my day off. She walked to the TV, stood between him and the screen. Your day off. Yeah, I work 12 days straight. I'm working too. I don't play games. I need to decompress. We need to figure out how to survive. Milton stood. I'm doing everything I can. You should have done more with your father. Stop blaming me for everything. Their voices rose. A neighbor banged on the shared wall, loud thud. They both froze, lowered their voices slightly. This is your fault, Clementine hissed. All of it. Milton's shoulders slumped. Fine, it's my fault. Happy? He turned off the game, grabbed his jacket, left the apartment. She sat alone in the suffocating studio. March 18th, Chester called, demanding she help with his storage unit fees. She refused, hung up on her own father. March 20th arrived, court hearing day. They dressed in their best clothes, wrinkled now, worn, and took the bus to the courthouse. Sat in the gallery while Sanders presented arguments. Harrison responded calmly, methodically. The judge reviewed documents, looked unimpressed with Sanders' claims. Motion to dismiss is granted. The plaintiff has presented no evidence of ownership interest. Mr. Gibson Sr. was and is the sole proprietor of Gibson Restoration, LLC. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Clementine's face went white. Sanders tried to argue. The judge cut him off. Outside the courthouse, Sanders said, "We can appeal." "With what money?" Milton asked quietly. They couldn't afford it. Sanders knew it. They all knew it. That was their last legal option. Gone. Spring arrived in Lisbon with jacaranda trees blooming purple along the streets. March and April passed in a pleasant rhythm. My Portuguese improved enough to have simple conversations with shopkeepers, ordering coffee without gesturing, asking directions, making small talk about the weather. I met other expats at a weekly cafe gathering near Rossio, Americans, Canadians, Brits, all of us choosing something new. We shared stories about bureaucracy, recommended doctors, complained good-naturedly about how nothing opened before 10 a.m., started taking woodworking classes at a studio in Marvila, east of the city center, worked alongside Portuguese craftsmen who still used traditional hand tools their grandfathers had used. The rhythm of planing wood felt meditative, familiar, home, but without the weight of the past. Harrison emailed periodically with updates. The lawsuit dismissed, no appeal filed, business running smoothly under Robert's management. He was proving himself capable, steady. Monthly profits arrived in my account like clockwork, transferred electronically across the ocean. I was living comfortably on about 2,000 euros a month, rent, food, transport, entertainment. The rest accumulated as savings. I could do this indefinitely, longer actually, until I was too old to climb Lisbon's hills. April 15th, I took a train north to Porto for a week, walked along the Douro River at sunset, toured wine caves carved into hillsides, stayed in a small hotel overlooking terracotta rooftops, returned to Lisbon feeling even more settled, more certain this was where I belonged. Meanwhile, back in Portland, desperation was breeding stupidity. May 3rd, I learned this later from Harrison, Clementine tried to access my bank account. She still had my old account number from years ago when she'd helped organize my taxes once. Logged in online somehow, tried to initiate a transfer to her account. The bank's fraud detection caught it immediately. They called the number on file, my Portuguese phone. "Mr. Gibson, we detected suspicious activity on your account." "What kind of activity?" "Someone attempted an unauthorized transfer of $12,000. We blocked it. Would you like to file a report?" "Yes, and I'll send you a list of people to flag. If any of them try to access my accounts, block them and notify me immediately." I emailed them names: Milton Gibson, Clementine Gibson, Chester Ellis, Cornelia Ellis. Included birth dates where I knew them. The bank thanked me for the information, added security protocols. Clementine's attempt triggered a fraud investigation. The bank contacted Portland police as required by law. A detective called her May 7th at work. She was on a target shift, had to take the call in the break room. She claimed it was a misunderstanding. Thought it was a joint account. The detective didn't buy it. Gave her a formal warning. Next time would result in criminal charges. She was terrified for about a week. Then the terror faded into resentment, which faded into something darker. June 2nd, Milton did something unforgivably stupid. He drove to Gibson Restoration after closing time, around 11 p.m., broke a back window with a rock, climbed inside, glass crunching under his shoes, tried to steal tools, valuable antique chisels, hand planes, items he thought he could sell quickly for cash, triggered the silent alarm Robert had installed after Chester's trespassing incident. Police arrived in 4 minutes, found Milton in the workshop with a canvas bag full of tools. Flashlight beams caught him mid-theft. He froze, put up his hands. They arrested him. Breaking and entering. Attempted theft. He spent the night in jail. Concrete bench, fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant and desperation. Clementine bailed him out the next morning. $600 on yet another credit card they couldn't afford. She didn't speak to him on the drive home. Robert called me via WhatsApp that afternoon, his time. Milton broke in, tried to steal tools. He's been arrested. Is anything damaged? Broken window, some glass on the floor. I'll get it repaired. Send me the bill. I'll cover it. What about pressing charges? I thought for a moment, watching pigeons on my balcony railing. Yes. File a formal complaint. Let the legal system handle it. You sure? It's your son. He made his choice. The police report was filed. Milton was charged formally. Court date set for August. His public defender, overworked, exhausted, explained the likely outcome: probation, restitution, community service. First offense worked in his favor, but the evidence was overwhelming. Security cameras had caught everything. His fingerprints on the tools. No defense available. June 20th, I sat in my regular Lisbon cafe reading Harrison's email update about all of this. Milton arrested. Clementine's fraud attempt. Their studio apartment barely affordable on 2 full-time minimum wage jobs. Chester and Cornelia not speaking to their daughter after she refused to help with storage fees. Complete collapse of the entire family structure. I finished my coffee, Bika, they called it here, strong and dark in a tiny cup. Closed my laptop. Walked to the river. The Tagus was calm that day, reflecting clouds like a mirror. Tourists took photos of the 25th of April bridge, Lisbon's answer to the Golden Gate. Street vendors sold roasted chestnuts even though it was almost summer. A tram climbed the hill behind me, bell ringing its cheerful warning. I felt nothing about Milton's arrest. No satisfaction, no regret, just distance. Like reading about strangers in a newspaper. They'd treated me like I was disposable, convenient when useful, discardable when inconvenient. Tried to take everything I'd built over 40 years. Now they were discovering what actual consequences felt like. I'd simply let them experience the natural results of their choices. Hadn't added anything. Just removed my protection, my support, my presence. And gravity had done the rest. That evening, I met friends at a restaurant in Bairro Alto. We ate grilled sardines and octopus, drank Vinho Verde, talked about nothing important. Someone's visa renewal, a new bakery that opened, weekend plans to visit Sintra. Someone told a joke in terrible Portuguese, mangling the pronunciation. We all laughed, walked home through narrow streets afterward, past ancient buildings painted in fading yellows and blues. My apartment key turned smoothly in the lock. Inside, everything was simple, clean, mine. Sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. City lights spread below like scattered diamonds. Ships on the river moving slowly toward the Atlantic. Stars barely visible through the urban glow. 7,000 miles away, Milton was probably lying awake, worrying about his criminal charges. Clementine probably beside him, maybe sleeping, maybe staring at the ceiling of their tiny studio. Both of them trapped in the life they'd tried to force on me, while I was here, free, peaceful, unreachable. The justice wasn't dramatic, wasn't cinematic, but it was absolute. I finished my wine, went inside, slept soundly. Summer brought the breaking point. While Lisbon's heat made me seek shade in ancient churches, Portland's pressure cooked what remained of Milton and Clementine's marriage. July 2nd, they had another argument about money. I didn't witness it, but I could imagine the cramped studio, bills spread across the small table, voices rising until neighbors complained. July 5th, Clementine walked into the Legal Aid Society of Portland, filled out intake forms, waited 90 minutes in plastic chairs, met with a paralegal who helped her complete divorce petition. Reason for divorce? Irreconcilable differences, financial instability, his criminal behavior. Criminal behavior? He's facing burglary charges, attempted fraud. He's destroyed everything. The paralegal typed notes. Are you afraid of him? Clementine hesitated. Yes. Strategic lie. She wasn't afraid, but a restraining order would help with housing priority. Any shared assets? Nothing. We have nothing. Filing fee. $300 on a nearly maxed credit card. July 8th, a process server found Milton during his delivery shift. Handed him a manila envelope while he waited for a restaurant order. Milton Gibson, you've been served. Milton opened it in his car. Read, petition for dissolution of marriage. His hands shook. He sat there 20 minutes staring at the papers, finally started his engine, continued deliveries, needed the money. That evening, he signed the acknowledgement of service, mailed it back to the court. No contest, no energy to fight. The divorce would finalize in 90 days. Mid-July, Clementine called her parents. "The divorce is happening. I need to move back home temporarily." Chester's voice was cold. "You destroyed everything. You promised us that house." "It wasn't my fault. Milton's father. You picked him. You made the plan. You convinced us to give up our apartment." Cornelia's voice in the background, bitter. "We lost everything because of you." "You can come back," Chester said, "but don't expect warmth." July 18th, Clementine loaded her car. Everything she owned fit in a Honda Civic. Drove across Portland to her parents' apartment. Chester opened the door without greeting. She carried bags to her childhood bedroom. Same furniture from high school, depressing. That night, Cornelia made dinner, set 2 plates, not 3. "Should I eat?" Clementine asked. "Make your own." She made a sandwich, ate alone in her room, heard her parents arguing in the living room about whose fault it all was. Lay on her twin bed staring at the ceiling, realizing she had nowhere else to go. Milton, meanwhile, moved to an even cheaper studio, $800 a month in a rough neighborhood. July 20th, moved his few possessions alone. Air mattress, folding chair, bags of clothes. Everything fit in one carload. His routine became mechanical. Wake at 5:30, no shower, conserving water costs. Same clothes from yesterday. Protein bar for breakfast. DoorDash from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Home for an hour. Evening courier shift, 4 p.m. to midnight. Come home exhausted. Can of soup eaten cold. Sleep on air mattress. Repeat. Sundays, his day off. Spent applying for better jobs that never called back. Criminal charges showed on background checks. August 1st, he received notice. Civil lawsuit from the bank, seeking $30,000 in damages plus legal fees. He couldn't pay. Considered bankruptcy. His phone rang occasionally. Debt collectors, court reminders. Never his father, never Clementine. He was truly alone for the first time in his life. August 8th, I received an email from Harrison while sitting at a cafe in Porto. I'd spent summer traveling, Porto, Barcelona, Madrid. Needed to see more of Europe while I was here. The email, DA closed criminal fraud case, insufficient evidence. However, bank's civil suit proceeds. Milton faces financial consequences, but not jail time for fraud attempt. Burglary case still pending, likely probation. I sipped my coffee, typed reply. The consequences are what matter, not the venue. Civil lawsuit is sufficient. Sent it. Continued reading news on my tablet. Felt neither satisfaction nor disappointment, just completeness. The machine I'd set in motion had run its course. Milton had destroyed himself. I'd just removed the safety nets. Finished my coffee. Paid. Walked through Porto's tilted streets thinking, time to return. August 12th, back in Lisbon. I sat at my laptop reviewing everything. Emails from Robert. Business thriving, revenue up 15%. I'd built something sustainable. Emails from Harrison. All legal matters resolved in my favor. Family scattered. Bank statements. Financially secure for years. 7 months in Europe. Enough for now. August 14th, I booked my return flight. TAP Air Portugal, Porto to Portland via Lisbon, departing August 24th. Business class this time, at 62, comfort mattered. Emailed. Robert. Arriving Portland August 25th afternoon. I'd like to return to work. Is the workshop ready? His reply came within an hour. Absolutely. Your office untouched. Can't wait to see you. Emailed Harrison. I'll be in Portland end of August. Coffee? Name the time. Much to discuss. August 15th, I stood on my Alfama balcony one last time. Looked over rooftops toward the Tagus River. 7 months here. Good months. But Portland was still home. My workshop was home. Time to reclaim it fully. I packed my suitcase methodically. Left out clothes for travel. Everything else folded, organized, ready. The people who'd tried to take everything from me were living with consequences I'd engineered. I didn't need to see them suffer. I just needed to know they understood. Actions have outcomes, betrayal has costs, and I was never the weak old man they'd assumed. I wasn't returning to gloat. I was returning to reclaim what was mine, my business, my city, my life on my terms. 1 week until departure, 1 week until I'd see what remained of the wreckage. August 25th, my flight landed at Portland International at 3 p.m. Collected my bag, walked through familiar terminals. Everything looked the same. I felt different. Caught a taxi to my workshop. Robert met me at the door, grin spreading across his face. We shook hands, then he pulled me into a hug. "Welcome back, boss." "Good to be back." He showed me around. New projects in progress. The furniture I'd started before leaving finished beautifully. Clients had been happy. Revenue reports looked strong. My office was exactly as I'd left it. Desk clear, files organized, chair waiting. "I kept it ready," Robert said. "Knew you'd come back eventually." I sat in my chair. Felt right. "I want to start working again, maybe part-time. I'm not as young as I used to be." "Whatever you want. Just having you here helps." That evening, I checked into a hotel. Not ready to find permanent housing yet. Needed time to figure out what came next. August 26th, I met Harrison for coffee downtown. He looked the same, wire-rimmed glasses, expensive suit, professional smile. "You look good," he said. "Lisbon treated you well." "It did. How are things here?" "Legally, everything's closed." Milton and Clementine finalized their divorce August 10th. He's working multiple jobs, barely keeping his head above water. She's with her parents, but from what I hear, it's not pleasant. Chester and Cornelia blame her for everything. And Milton's criminal case? Pleaded guilty to attempted burglary, 3 years probation, community service, restitution to your business for the broken window, and security upgrades. The fraud case was dropped criminally, but the civil suit continues. He'll be paying that debt for years. I sip my coffee. He's alive. He's working. That's more than he gave me credit for. "You want to know something interesting?" Harrison leaned forward. "I ran into Milton last week, downtown, delivering food. He didn't see me, but I saw him. He looked..." Harrison paused. "Defeated, exhausted, 10 years older. That's what consequences look like. You achieved what you set out to do. Complete separation, complete accountability. I didn't set out to destroy him. I set out to protect myself. Sometimes those are the same thing." We finished our coffee. Harrison picked up the tab. "What's next for you?" "Work, maybe find an apartment, maybe travel more. I'm 62. I've earned the right to decide as I go." "Fair enough. Call if you need anything." We shook hands. He left. I sat there a while longer, watching people pass on the street. Portland in late summer, my city. Always had been. September 1st, I was in my workshop sanding a mahogany table when someone knocked. Robert was at lunch. I looked up. Milton stood in the doorway. We stared at each other. He looked terrible, thin, exhausted, older, delivery bag on his shoulder. He'd been working nearby, probably saw the workshop, made a decision. "I don't want anything," he said quickly. I wanted to say, I'm sorry." I set down my sandpaper, didn't speak. "You were right," he continued, "about everything. I was weak. I let Clementine convince me. I thought..." He trailed off. "I thought you owed me something. The house, the business, support. Because I was your son." "You were my son," I said quietly. "Past tense." He flinched. "I know. I destroyed that. I just wanted you to know I understand now what you were trying to teach me. Independence, accountability, self-sufficiency. I'm learning. Too late, but I'm learning." "How's the work going?" "Hard, exhausting, but honest. I earn what I make. Nobody's supporting me. Nobody's carrying me." He shifted his delivery bag. "I should go. I have orders waiting. I just needed to say that." He turned to leave. "Milton." He stopped, looked back. "You'll survive this. You're surviving already. That's more than I thought you capable of." Something crossed his face. Gratitude, maybe, or relief. "Thank you." He left. I watched him walk to his car, drive away. Returned to my sanding, felt nothing in particular. Not forgiveness, not satisfaction, just closure. September turned to October. I found a small house to rent in southeast Portland. Nothing fancy, just enough space, good light, close to the workshop. Settled in gradually. Started taking on select restoration projects. Things that interested me. No pressure, no deadlines I didn't want. Met Robert for drinks occasionally, Harrison for lunch, made friends with other craftsmen, thought about Lisbon sometimes, might go back for a few months each year. Portland winters were cold. Portuguese winters were mild. October 15th, I was finishing the mahogany table, commissioned from a lawyer downtown, anniversary gift for his wife, when I realized I was happy. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just happy. Working with my hands, living on my own terms, beholden to no one. They'd tried to take my home and put me in a facility. I'd built a better life instead. The revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about freeing myself. They'd destroyed themselves. I'd just stopped preventing it. I applied the final coat of oil to the table, watched it soak into the wood. Mahogany gleamed under the workshop lights. Beautiful piece. The client would be pleased. Outside, Portland rain started falling. October rain, steady and cold. I locked up the workshop, drove home through wet streets, made dinner in my kitchen, sat by my window watching drops slide down the glass. 62 years old, alone but not lonely, independent, free, exactly where I chose to be. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.